Just a few days ago, it was back to school for most, but a first for some children. For parents, it was perhaps a relief for some, but a bag of mixed emotions, especially for some of those sending their kids for the first time to a formal school. Whatever the case, there's one common and very important question. Is your child healthy enough to start school and or withstand all the health-related challenges that the school environment might pose? Furthermore, whose responsibility is it to maintain a child's health and safety throughout the schooling career? Will the government's integrated school health program provide all the answers? Is the environment in our schools conducive to healthy learning and development for their children? What role can you as a parent play in this regard? Well, stay tuned because these are the questions we will tackle in today's shows. We discuss healthy schooling. We have an expert panel comprised of representatives from the government's Department of Health and Basic Education, a specialist pediatrician, and a dietitian to help us navigate through this topic. So sit back, relax, and learn from this exciting show ahead. As usual, you can be part of this show by calling us with your questions or views on Johannesburg 714-6843, 6847, or 6857. Or interact with us on our Facebook page, SABC Health Talk, and on Twitter at SABC Health Talk. I'm Dr. Sello Mukdaung, and this is Health Talk.
School children can experience several health problems such as poor oral health, some infectious such as chickenpox, and mental health issues such as ADHD. Whenever children are together, there is a chance of spreading infections. In order to reduce the risk of becoming sick, your child must be up to date with the recommended immunizations. Even though your child has had immunizations, he can get infectious diseases common in children such as coughs, colds, and sore throats. Research shows that majority of children in schools have as many as 8 to 12 cases of colds a year. According to the World Health Organization, school health programs are a combination of services that ensure that the mental, physical, and social well-being of learners is well taken care of. Paying special attention to children's health will improve not only their survival, growth, and well-being, but also their learning outcomes and development. The introduction of the integrated school health program will allow learners in foundation, intermediate, senior, and further education and training to access a variety of health services.
Services will be provided by school health teams, each led by a professional nurse. In the early phases, services will cover environmental and personal hygiene, especially the importance of hand washing, healthy eating, the promotion of physical exercise, and safety. Health professionals will also check the ears, eyes, immunization status, and the nutritional status of children. In the intermediate phase, attention will be paid to mental health issues, including depression and suicide. In 2009,
during the integrated health program launch in 2012, it was further announced that a number of health professionals have already been trained to monitor children's health in schools. Information on HIV/AIDS, sexual and reproductive health will also be introduced in South Africa's public schools.
There's a saying that goes, healthier children are better learners. No matter how the school and the teacher may be prepared to teach, sick children will simply be poorly motivated to learn. Now, to get a deeper understanding of what these health barriers to learning are and what the health departments and the Department of Basic Education is doing with these, let's introduce our special guest today. First up is Dr. Nonhlanhla Dlamini, who's no stranger to this show. Dr. Dlamini is Chief Director for Child, Youth and School Health in the Department of Health. Welcome to Health Talk once more.
Thank you. Good morning.
Right. And then next to her we have Dr. Faith Khumalo, who's Chief Director for Care and Support in Schools from the Department of Basic Education. Welcome to Health Talk, Dr. Khumalo.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone.
Okay. And of course, last but not least, we have Dr. Pinky Chira, who's a specialist pediatrician based at Charlotte Maxeke Hospital. Welcome to Health Talk, Dr. Chira.
Thank you and good morning.
Right. Perhaps let's stay with you. In the clip, I mean, there was mention of, schools being this sort of environment where it's possible that children can, get illnesses and injuries and so on. And perhaps some of the parents watching this program are a little bit anxious. They've sent their kids for the first time to school, and they're probably worried that are their kids going to get sick. What are the sort of common illnesses that can affect children at school?
Okay. So you can look at them in two different ways.
Right.
You can divide them into those that are like your physical health and those that are like your emotional or behavioral problems. So looking at physical health, most of the problems that we tend to see are like infections, which are common because they go hand in hand with overcrowding, with people being in the same place. And as you know, our schools, particularly in the public sector, tend to be overcrowded, and there's a lot of interaction. So if your child has got like a viral illness, even if it's just a viral upper respiratory tract infection, and they're coughing, and they come to class, they're going to infect the other children.
Well, talk about viruses. I mean, are there some type of infections that are perhaps more common in a school environment than anywhere else?
Yeah, I think the commonest for me is viruses in terms of your upper respiratory tract infections.
Right.
But we should not forget the fact that we live in South Africa. We've got poor communities. So TB, we see a lot of children with TB. So any chronic cough needs to be followed up because we never know, is it just viral? Is it just a upper respiratory tract infection, or is it something deeper like TB?
Yeah. Then, of course, there's talk of some of these skin infections. Children develop rashes. Some they call chicken pox. Can you just tell us a little bit about some of those?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of skin rashes.
Yeah.
Some are benign, which means they're harmless, and some can be quite serious, and some can even move from one patient, child to the next child in terms of contamination. So the difficult thing with rashes is someone needs to check it out. So if your child's got a rash, you're not sure, rather go to a health professional and they can reassure you and say, this is okay, this is a mild rash, it's self-limiting, it will go away. But you've got some serious rashes and some serious skin infections that affect children that need to be treated.
Yeah. And I guess the important thing is that some of them would be infectious.
Yes,
if
be
one
infectious,
child has,
and the other kids can still get it.
Yeah. You mentioned lastly psychological sort of issues, yeah?
Yes. Especially for kids that are new to school. Those are like quite a wide range. They start from just emotional attachment. This child's been home with the mother for a while. They're starting school. They're scared. They're
they
not
can't
sure
separate from their mothers.
Separation anxiety, there you got it.
Yeah.
There's other issues. How they look. I think people underestimate how children feel. They might be shorter than the other children in class. They might be fatter. They get bullied. They get teased. And all those emotional issues need to be addressed.
All right. Let's come back to the Department of Health. Dr. Dlamini, we hear that there is this integrated school health program that is designed to address some of these challenges that Dr. Chira just outlined now. Perhaps let's start off by asking you to just tell us a little bit about the background to this integrated school health program.
Thank you very much. The integrated school health program is actually built on the first school health policy, school health services policy we had, which was in 2003. So it was revised and improved for us to come up with the integrated school health program. And it's jointly implemented by Departments of Health, Departments of Basic Education, and Department of Social Development. Integrated in that we have elements that we look at and cover what Dr. Chira just spoke about. So we screen for health barriers for barriers to learning. And these basically we screen for vision, if they have problems, and hearing.
Yeah.
And then we screen for TB as well.
Okay.
And we also screen for oral health, and then we refer appropriately.
Okay.
But
So the overall strategy, what I get from what you're saying is that it's on the one hand preventative.
Yes.
You're looking at implementing preventative services.
That's correct. Yes.
All right. And
Curative.
on the curative side.
So we also do health promotion. So
Right.
information and how to stay healthy, hygiene, that whole package, and then the prevention of disease or illness, and then maintenance of well-being. And on the curative side, so we have school health teams that are headed by a professional nurse that actually go out to schools where to do the screening, but also for simple curative remedies, such as the skin infections that Dr. Chiro spoke about.
All right.
And we also provide deworming medication for children.
Okay, we're going to come back to some of those issues because I think we'd like to get a little deeper into that. But Dr. Khumalo, I mean, the Department of Health is really responsible for, health issues affecting children. But you're the custodian of the education of these children. Now, how do you view, number one, the integrated school health program in terms of, who owns the program?
Yeah, the Department of Basic Education really takes seriously its responsibility around health matters.
Yeah.
Because I think firstly, we want to ensure that schools are a safe and a healthy environment for all that the people who live in that space. So obviously our learners, it's important for them that the schools are safe, but also our educators and all the officials that work in that space, because it's a workplace, so we need to make sure that it is healthy and safe for them. Yeah. And by extension, also the parents that come very frequently and are partners in it. Yeah. So we have to look at the health and safety, programs in that. Right. We believe that schools can play a very critical role in inculcating correct behaviors in children when they are young and much more malleable, to adopting good, healthy lifestyles. And they haven't adopted the bad habits of parents, that we demonstrate. Yeah. So we use the curriculum to teach them, around nutrition, good food choices, around the role of exercise. But as many of you would know, we have physical education as a compulsory part of the school year and calendar. And we have a specific period, 1 week, 1 hour per week, that children must spend out doing physical exercise. Yeah. And school sport is a big part of that we use to make sure that this happens. So we really believe that working together with the Department of Health and other role players, we can make sure that this current generation of South Africans grows up with a proper and a full understanding that their health is in their hands and they can really make good life choices for today, but also for the future health of the nation.
Right. Talk about role players. We have two departments here, basic education and health. She mentioned Department of Social Development. Yes. Are there other government departments? I'm thinking here about, for instance, Public Works.
Yes.
And how do you interact? How do you interact in such a way that you don't retard progress in terms of implementation of these programs?
Yeah. No, as government, we're really working hard in ensuring the intergovernmental, kind of relationships and working together. And in fact, the Integrated School Health Program, as Dr. Dlamini would attest, is a model of how it is possible for us to work jointly together. For us, yes, we work with Public Works. We also work with the Department of Agriculture as well around school food gardens, because we believe it's important that children also learn the skills to be able to produce their own food. So we use the school gardens to give them the skills, but also to supplement one of the biggest programs that we have, which is the National School Nutrition Program, where children receive meals at schools.
All right, just hold it there because I'd like us to continue this discussion. Excellent. We just need to go for a quick commercial break. After the break, we continue with our discussion on the Integrated School Health Program. Please stay with us.
Looking for social issues?
It is not our intention to give condoms to 10-year-old children.
We're here to assist you. Looking for religious issues?
The point is not for the church to try and prove whether this is the fact.
So we want accountability. Is there a system of governance in your churches?
Political issues.
Barack Obama said Africa should stop looking to the outside for salvation and focus on someone else being at fault for the problems of the continent.
Economic issues.
The young mothers, single mothers that's buying property now.
Or just looking to air your views.
Here are some of your views on social media.
Look no further, as Newsroom has all the informative information you need. Weekdays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
Welcome back. Now, there can be no doubt that children thrive and learn in a healthy environment. So, what is the government's role in making schooling healthy for all children? Let's get a deeper understanding on these issues from our special guests. We still have Dr. Nonhlanhla Dlamini, Chief Director within the Department of Health, looking after youth, child and school health. And then, of course, we still have Dr. Faith Khumalo, Chief Director for Care and Support in the Schools within the Department of Basic Education, and Dr. Pinky Chira, Specialist Pediatrician with special interest in neonatology, and she is based at the Charlotte Matlake Hospital. Now, again, let's start with you, Dr. Chira. You know, the school environment, just now we focused a lot on the diseases and the illnesses, you know, that can affect children. But the environment at school, you know, are there issues there that can perhaps promote, you know, illnesses or injuries perhaps for kids?
Yeah, I suppose there are issues in terms of your physical environment.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Khumalo has said, it has to be safe.
Yeah.
Children need to be in a safe environment. It needs to be clean. So that ties very well with health.
Yeah.
I'm sure recently you've seen school toilets have become a problem. That's an issue that the department can actually look at in improving. So there's quite a few physical issues, and going back again to emotional issues in terms of psychological support.
Yeah.
We know school failure is a big problem, and some of it you can think it's just a social issue, but some is even physical. We hear stories about children failing because they can't see. So someone needs to test their eyes.
Yeah.
Some children's hearing is a problem, so that needs to be sorted out.
Okay. Dr. Khumalo, you know, she mentioned the issue of toilets. The issue of basic sanitation and, you know, water provision is a right for children. And we've seen, I mean, we've had stories recently of a school actually having to be shut almost because of the fact that, you know, the toilets were not ready, and then there were issues around who's responsible and so on. Let's talk about that physical environment that Dr. Chiro spoke about. I mean, clearly there's differences in public schools, various regions, and so on. What are the priority areas for the department in trying to ensure that at least all schools have a safe and, you know, safe environment that is conducive to learning?
Yeah. I mean, I think it is no secret that issues of physical infrastructure are a challenge for the sector.
Yeah.
And the department has actually gone a long way to try and claw back some of the backlog that we know where it comes from, you know, from our past, from our history, and the unequal availability and attention that was paid to public schools that serve Africans in the main in the rural areas. I think people also know that we have the program that's the Accelerated School Infrastructure Program, wherein last year, for example, you know, a new school was built and opened in the Eastern Cape largely, and also in other provinces. And these schools have new technology. They have all the infrastructure, including the issues that ablution facilities, but also nutrition centers. Because I come back to the issue that, good nutrition is also part of health and healthy lifestyles. And so the provision of school health services is a critical component of the work that we do, including school feeding. So our schools were not built with nutrition centers. They were not built with storage facilities for the foodstuff we use. They were not built with kitchens. They were not built with dining halls. And so government is actually increasingly providing these facilities moving forward. But you have to admit there's a backlog that is huge. And if we were to do it, all at once, I think we did an audit about 3 years ago, it would cost hundreds of billions of rands, and that is not resources that we have available.
But are the timelines? I mean, the Integrated School Health Program was launched in 2012.
Yes.
Are there targets that we're working towards?
Yes, no, absolutely. And yes, absolutely, including in all the areas, but also the target in terms of which schools we're going to first, because we are prioritizing the rural and the marginalized schools. We have a poverty ranking system, so we start with those that can afford it. But as basic education, we believe that part of our role is also to make sure that those parents that can afford to access private healthcare and have the means to go elsewhere, we must provide them the information that they are able to do so, so that government can then focus through the support and the help and the integration with the Department of Health on those that don't have the means to provide for themselves.
Yeah. Dr. Tlemin, I know that it's probably not practical to conduct a sort of health risk assessment at the time that kids, apply to schools and get into schools. But what can be done to try and have some sort of screening, basic screening, to ensure that at least, children that are admitted, into school are healthy, number one, and those that may not be healthy at least get some sort of help? What can be done in that regard?
Well, the screening actually starts when the mom is still pregnant, through the our antenatal care, our delivery. You can actually pick up gross ailments in a child. But using the Road to Health booklet as well as the child care, there's the developmental screening there, how to easily check if your child can see and hear. So that if we follow what's in the Road to Health booklet, by the time the child gets to school, we should have actually picked up many of these ailments. However, the school health nurses also go to grade R and to creches as well. And they use the same tools to screen, of course, age appropriate. And then we've prioritized the services because we don't have enough nurses to do all the children in all the schools. So we have prioritized the classes, grade R, grade 1. At least let's start there, so that if we can get 100% coverage there, as the child moves on, these health barriers have been identified. And then we do grade 4, and then we do grade 8, and then grade 10. But we need to saturate grade 1, grade R, and move up. But if an educator refers a child or a parent, that's also a priority. So they were very flexible in how we administer the services.
Okay, so and again, it's not just screening, but there's interventions as well.
Referrals, yes. For instance, if a child needs spectacles, straight away we have to make sure the child receives those spectacles. If the child has a hearing deficiency, and it's not that the child needs a hearing aid, sometimes it's just impacted wax, and that's the intervention, just to clear that.
Just going back a little bit to the issue of the environment, Dr. Kumalo mentioned the issues around the environment. Now, from the Department of Health, I believe that there's a program that is aimed at providing children with school shoes, those that don't have school shoes. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
That's more the...
Or is it the Department of Basic Education?
Yeah, I mean, we have various, interventions around this. We have a program that we call the Care and Support for Teaching and Learning, which is a framework that we use to look at those things that are traditionally not viewed as co-curricular. And part of it is material support, because we realize that although, there might be no school fees because we have a no school fee policy in place, children's access to schooling might be limited because they might not have a school uniform or school shoes and those kinds of things. And so we have a system where our teachers identify the children that are vulnerable, what their particular needs are, and working together with social partners, we then provide those material needs that they might have, including sporting equipment and those kinds of things. So this happens, with NGOs, but also with the private sector as well, to be able to do it. And also just general members of the population, that come in and help. And I think for us, the critical message that we want to send out is that it is, the president in the past has said that education is a societal matter. It's not only the Department of Basic Education that's responsible. When they're in school, we can deal with them. But largely, the barriers to access to schooling, but also to adequate and optimum teaching and learning are social and economic and outside of the ambit and the control of the schooling environment. So
there's so much we can talk about
on
this issue, but very quickly, just in the last 30 seconds.
Yes.
School nutrition is another important one.
Yes.
What is the government doing about it?
Okay. Like I said, curriculum, number one, we teach. We provide school meals to over 9 million children who need it at school. It's a fully balanced meal that is provided within that environment. We also teach them, like I said, the gardening skills to make sure that they can build their own. And we're also looking at our tuck shops and our vendors to make sure that they are safe and healthy choices that are available there.
Okay.
So the
I think it's on this note,
well.
that we can just cut it here, because I want us to get back onto this tuck shop issue a bit later on. Otherwise, the two ladies from the Department of Health, Department of Basic Education, thank you so much for your contribution. All right, we're going to go for a quick commercial break. When we come back, we answer the question, what should children be eating to enable learning at schools? That after the break. Please stay with us.
Step up, people of the party. We need your energy, your greatness. Just because you don't do it for money doesn't make you an amateur. Yes, we salute you, party comrade, with a bottle of Johnny Walker Red Label for just $169.99 from Tops at Spa.
The big news is Newsroom.
We also stream live on YouTube.
Whether you're at home, at the office, or at the gym, wherever you are, Newsroom is right there with you. Bringing you all the latest news, updates, sports, weather, and everything in between. Get all the latest news you need on the go via live streaming on our YouTube channel. That's Newsroom, weekdays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
Children are a pride and joy to their parents. At an early age, they are often energetic, inquisitive, and full of life. But keeping these schooling-going bodies healthy is often daunting. Parents often have challenges when it comes to packing lunch for their kids. Many parents don't realize that eating habits are formed during childhood and they can last a lifetime. It is therefore important for children to learn of the benefits of good nutrition and to develop healthy eating habits. Schools are an excellent setting for bringing nutrition education to children at an early age and throughout their childhood. Fizzy drinks and potato chips are the top sellers in primary schools. The family and community represents another dimension of the micro-curriculum. Their involvement is particularly vital in nutrition education, as the school is not the only source of what children learn. Eating habits, practices and attitudes are learned primarily in the family and reinforced by the community. Parents should consider these following tips to ensure that their children maintain healthy habits and lifestyle.
Brown bread. Brown bread is higher in fibre or roughage, which will actually help to sustain the energy throughout the day. You can put in different types of fillings. Second part of the lunchbox would be fresh fruit or dried fruits. So you definitely want to go for the fruits in season. Those are always the most affordable. The next part would be some dairy. So one of your yogurts, a low fat or a fat free. As well, if not, then you can go for a low fat flavored yogurt or a smoothie, which could be ready made, or you can make it at your house with a blender with fresh fruits and yogurt.
Happy kid, eh? All right, healthy nutrition strengthens the learning potential and well-being of children. But what is optimum nutrition for the learning child? Well, let's get our guests to enlighten us on this. We still have Dr. Pinky Chira, specialist pediatrician based at Charlotte Maxeke Hospital. And we're now joined by Vicky Munyamani, who's a dietitian based at the Louis Pasteur Hospital in Pretoria. Welcome to Health Talk, by the way.
Thank you, Dr. Mtawu.
All right, let's start with you, Dr. Chira. I made the statement that nutrition strengthens the learning potential in children. How is this possible?
This is actually very possible because for any child to grow properly, good nutrition is actually the fundamental requirement. As a neonatologist, for instance, we start right through pregnancy. If a mother is healthy and the mother is healthy during pregnancy, we have a healthy baby. And sometimes, for instance, in our follow-up clinics, we look for physical growth, which is your length, your head circumference, and your weight. And all of those things tie in basically with nutrition, with what you eat. That's why we, for instance, are on a drive to promote breastfeeding, because that is actually good for children. And this is going to serve these children very good when they go into school, because one, they will be healthier, they will be better, and there's quite a lot of studies that show that good nutrition and a good growth during your infancy translates to a better neurological development. That is not even in question. So if you take that and take it into the school environment, then you should continue with that healthy eating program. And I don't know if you know, there's always a saying that you are what you eat. So if you eat well, you're going to end up well. And if you start badly, you're going to end up in a bad space. Yeah.
Vicky Mueleti, I'm told.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about optimum nutrition. I mean, Dr. Chira just, outlined the importance of nutrition. What is optimum nutrition for the child, for the learning child?
Optimum nutrition for the learning child would be items of food or meals that a child can have, be able to be in class and concentrate without feeling hungry, without feeling agitated. The child would need to have food that actually sustains his energy. The child will need food that will not actually make him hyper-stimulated. And that meal that the child gets at school or in a lunchbox needs to at least give a balance of the macronutrients, be it his proteins, be it his carbohydrates, and a little bit of fat, and some vitamins from your fruits.
Okay. Let's get a little bit practical now. Dr. Chira, let's talk breakfast. Should all children, before coming to school, have breakfast?
Definitely.
I suppose I'm asking a silly question.
It's not silly.
There's a reason why I'm asking it. Yeah?
It's very important. Yeah. And adding to that, it has to be like a balanced breakfast, like she's outlined.
Yeah.
Parents out there might not know what constitutes a protein, what constitutes a fat, what constitutes vitamins. But if you have like a balanced meal, take for instance like anything with fiber, like fruit and cereals, even brown bread. So basically you eat according to your means. Because there's this myth that for you to have healthy food, you need to have like lots of money.
Yeah.
But you actually can improvise from what you have. Brown bread and peanut butter.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a balanced meal with a glass of milk for a child.
And it's affordable.
Yeah, it's affordable.
All right. Then there's a question of lunch boxes. What should parents pack in that lunch box? I'm assuming we're talking about those that carry lunch boxes to school, because a lot of children actually don't. Let's talk about those that are able to pack lunch boxes for their children. What should they pack in there?
You know, when you're looking at lunch boxes, Dr. Chiro would also attest to that in as much as we say a lot of children don't carry lunch boxes, it's for many other reasons, where maybe you find that the child comes from a place where there's no food. Sometimes children, all they get is the meal at school. But sometimes parents don't pack the lunchbox, and because it's the easy way out. So they actually opt to give a child money.
Yeah.
And so that the child would make their own nutrition decision in school. So it's more like the child is going to parent himself somehow.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that money issue, because it ties into the tuck shop that I want us to talk about.
So in your lunchbox,
let's talk, practically, what's advisable to be put in there?
In your lunchbox, I would say translate what you've been eating from home, like in the previous night, translate it into a lunchbox.
Okay.
If you had been having chicken livers in the night, the following day you can make a sandwich with that chicken livers. If you've had tin fish, translate it into your bread and make a sandwich out of it. If you've had mincemeat, translate it that way. And in that way, there is not necessarily a stretch of a budget in terms of having lunchbox food and everyday food.
We've experienced a heat wave in the recent past, but I would imagine there's some foods, because I would imagine they keep the lunch boxes in the bags, and sometimes they leave them out there, out in the sun. Are there foods that are not advisable in this sort of environments where it's hot?
In the heat wave environment, you would not want to carry for a child your cooked food, like your vegetables, where maybe a child has taken a stir-fried cabbage or a pumpkin or rice, that kind of a full meal, like rice and veggies and all that, it will rot in the heat of the sun. Yeah. So you want to opt for drier food. For instance, you can take in maybe an orange, you can give a child like a fresh apple, and of course like we spoke, your bread and your peanut butters, that will not rot. And your child can actually keep it better. And in terms of the fluid, maybe you want to give them I usually would freeze the bottle of water, and whilst I give them a little bottle of juice, and I'll give a bottle of frozen water, so somewhere during the day the child can still have cool, hydrating fluid.
Dr. Chiro, this question of tuck money is a huge problem, because if you just go through to any of the schools, go through the tuck shops and have a look at what's sold in those tuck shops. I mean, it's shocking. There's all sorts of fizzy drinks, all the bad stuff. What advice do you give to parents in that regard? At least let's start with parents, because with schools we can, talk about the school nutrition policies and so on.
To parents, my big advice would be, one, familiarize yourself with the tuck shop at your child's school.
Yeah.
A whole lot of schools now are actually opting to have a healthy section, but they still have snacks and fizzy drinks. And assuming that you've done the education at home, what constitutes healthy meals. And in terms of tuck shop money, I am not a believer in tuck shop money. I can't actually even think of the time when I gave my children tuck shop money. I think we only gave on a Friday, just to
as a treat.
Yeah. So we could stick to that. So packed lunches, I still think they beat buying food at the tuck shop, because then you know exactly what goes into your child's meal.
Yeah.
But
we assume we do. By the way, the children share their lunch boxes.
I know they do. They share their lunches, and the other aspect that we can speak about, is also children feeling like their packed lunch is not adequate or it's not good enough, and they hide it.
We'll get back to that, because that's the role of the parent.
Yeah.
Okay. After the break, we now take a look at the parents' role in their children's health. Please stay with us.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back to Health Talk. Now, the role of the parent goes far beyond just paying school fees and leaving it to government and schools to ensure that, the child health and safety is taken care of. Now, active parenting cannot be outsourced to government and schools. So what role should parents play in ensuring that their children stay healthy enough for optimum learning? Let's get this from our guests. Vicky Mueletsi, I beg your pardon, dietitian based at Louis Pasteur Hospital, and Dr. Pinky Chira, a specialist pediatrician based at the Charlotte Maxeke Hospital. We'll come back to the issue of, parents and lunchboxes and, their role and so on. But Dr. Chira, let's start with perhaps what parents can do in terms of ensuring that their child's health is well taken care of. There's issues such as vaccinations, and when should parents take their children for vaccinations and checks and so on?
Yeah, vaccinations are actually a very good way of preventing some of the preventable diseases.
Yeah.
And parents normally, post-delivery or post-giving birth, are given like a vaccination schedule.
Right.
They need to stick to that.
Right.
And the clinics and community health centers are very familiar with how they should schedule the visits.
Okay.
And if your child misses any vaccination, you need to always go back to the clinic and make sure that your child is vaccinated.
Okay, so those road to health charts, people should stick to.
And people should carry those road to health charts because they have a lot of information. They've got your birth history, they've got vaccinations given at the hospital, what you get at the clinic, and at the end, there's also school entry vaccination that parents need to be aware about.
Let's talk about those school entry vaccinations. What are they?
Basically, we call them boosters. You already have had these vaccinations, things like measles.
Right.
So, but because your immunity wears out, you need to sort of boost your immune system at that point. Mm-hmm. And there's different ways how people do it. We've got the public sector has a different schedule, and there's a private sector that has a different schedule. And they prevent all sorts of diseases. We've got now vaccinations that prevent pneumonias, that prevent diarrhea, that prevent measles, chickenpox, and all of that is included. And the public sector vaccination is actually very comprehensive, and I think is adequate for our South African system.
Well, yeah, there was this notion that, the standard set of vaccinations that you get from the public sector perhaps may not be adequate enough to cover everything.
Yeah.
Are there any extra ones that are recommended for parents?
I can't think of any right now because I think most of them are actually taken care of in our schedule for vaccinations.
They cover all the common...
They cover everything. The only one that sort of comes to mind is actually, I think, chickenpox, which is just done in private. It's not done in the public sector yet.
All right, okay. Then in terms of, taking children for checkups, is it a good idea to just take your child for a checkup before going to school?
It's a very good idea because first, before you even take your child for checkup, I think as parents we need to be observant. Just see how your child behaves at home. Anything that concerns you, you need to alert your medical health practitioner and they can look into it. And I always say, believe the parent, because the parents know their children best.
Right.
And what they tell you, just follow up, you will find something there.
Okay. Vicky, let's talk a little about back to nutrition now. I mean, much as we can talk about what children should eat, should not eat at school, children learn a lot from what happens in the families. Now, what advice do you then give to parents to ensure that, first of all, what they eat at home is healthy enough so that the children learn good eating habits at home?
It's very much important for parents to actually look into what goes into their breakfasts. For instance, if a family wakes up and there's not a day when they make a little oats porridge or a mabela porridge, and everybody just pick and grab whatever that they find. So the child already gets to know that they don't need to have meals routine, so they can just pick whatever that they grab. So in that environment, you'll find a child who'll easily get by with a packet of chips and some sweet and go by, because usually that's what happens at home. So it's very much important that parents can create some kind of a grounded, basic routine. If maybe there's a porridge in the morning before a child goes to school, or a oats in the morning before everybody leaves, that kind of a thing. Or if maybe they leave very early in the morning for school, you can sort of like have a packaged sandwich that a child can carry, and maybe they can have it whilst they're in their transport to school. Things like having fruits on a regular, and it can actually become an easy choice that when a child sees it, he doesn't have to compare it to a glass of soda that he usually sees at home. And so parents can actually set those habits quite early on, and I find that sometimes explaining to them the benefits of what they need to eat, it's very old school that you grew up being told that carrots are going to make your eyes whiter, and you've been eating raw carrots because somehow it's supposed to make your eyes whiter, or they give you oranges and they tell you it's supposed to make you not cough. So things of that sort, those messages, parents can actually be translating them quite early on in the home front.
What about the notion of having breakfast together with your children?
It's a beautiful notion, but unfortunately, if you look at South Africa, many parents work very far away from where they're living. So it becomes very difficult for most households to do that in the mornings, because people leave quite early, rushing for trains and things like that. So again, usually I would say from what we prepared the previous night, which becomes actually a biggest family meal, that's when you need to try and score your good points there. And some of that can be taken in the mornings for your breakfast. So instead of like rushing and pressuring for the breakfast meal, it's rather, maybe I would say, try to do the dinner together, because that's when you have an opportunity to impact on your family and your children. So if you come home and you're tired, and instead of cooking, you rather opt for a box of something, like a box of pizza, you're already teaching children that it's not important to actually have cooked meals. And so I would say the dinner is when you can actually much more try and have a balance there.
And of course, we didn't have time to talk about all the other habits. I mean, there's a whole notion of physical activity that is quite important. Very quickly, Dr. Chira, the parents' role in promoting physical activity.
The parents can play a very big role in promoting physical activity, because as we know, the environment that our children grow up in, they sit in front of the TV, they play PlayStation games. So without criticizing, you can nicely say, okay, let's go outside, let's go kick a ball. But it's easy to say that, because when you look at some of our environments, people live in high-rise buildings. I mean, where do they go out and actually find physical activity? I'm actually glad that the doctors from the Department of Health said at school there's actually a preset hour for physical activity.
Which is very important.
That's very important, and I think it's adequate.
Well, so little time and so much to talk about. Yes. Ladies, thank you so much for your contribution. Vicky Mweleti, I must get this right, dietitian based at Louis Pasteur Hospital in Pretoria, and Dr. Pinky Chira, specialist pediatrician based at Charlotte Maxeke Hospital. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Okay, thank you so much.
Right, folks, it's on that note that we come to the end of our show today. And again, join us, as you know, next week, SABC News. And again, please remember to share your views and comments with us via Facebook page, SABC Health Talk, and follow us on Twitter, SABC, or at least at SABC Health Talk. Remember that you can watch repeats of this show at 2 p.m. today and again next Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. Or simply go to the YouTube channel to get all the previous shows that we've had before. I'm Dr. Selom Mutau. Thank you so much for watching, and please do take care of those kids.